my people, how you doing? I hope you're having a damn great day. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to be discussing Martino's 4-3-3 into Miami tactics. Of course, if you do enjoy this video, hit that like button down below, subscribe if you are new, that would be fan-damn-tastic. We do make tactics videos like this all the time, every day. Yeah, it's killing me. But anyways, we're here. I've done a lot of research into this 4-3-3 system. Of course, I do know that recently they've been experimenting with a 5-back system. Of course, I think it's a 5-3-2. I saw the tactics, but I quite liked the 4-3-3 approach, and I think that's something more or less that they will look to try and, get into as the season starts in the MLS. So, I will also say this is the first part of a 4-part set of videos coming out today. I know I'm going to absolutely be dead by the end of it, but nonetheless, I hope you guys enjoy them. Smash the like button and let's hop on into the goddamn video. Okay, so starting off with the formation at hand, it is a 4-3-3 holding. I've made no structural changes to it whatsoever. So it is 1 goalkeeper, 2 centre-backs, 2 full-backs, 1 DM, 2 central midfielders, 1 striker, and then of course 2 wingers. Now moving on to the tactical side of things, of course the tactical vision I have set is tiki-taka. Now this will more or less involve the likes of Messi, Suarez, of course, getting them into the more preferred playing style that they know and they are very good at. Of course, they are up there in age, and I think the tiki-taka more or less lends itself to the aging player. Of course, if you have a high football IQ, you don't really need to overextend or overexert yourself, and therefore you can try and get the best out of the aging superstars. So, of course, with this style of play, you are looking for your players to move into open areas, try and support the build-up play of possession, making sure that they aren't rushing too much, but they are creating those little diamonds and triangles in and around the offensive half. Or even the defensive half, to be fair. As for the defensive style, though, I've set it to pressure on heavy touch, so not always overly exerting themselves and pressing too aggressively, waiting for the opposition to try and make a mistake before pouncing on it and then looking to try and capitalize and turning it over into a potential counter-attacking opportunity. As for the team width, I've set it to 30, creating that nice compact central structure to the team, making it very hard to break down centrally, forcing and vacating the opposition into those out wide areas. As for the depth, I've set it to the highest it can possibly be for the tiki-taka tactical vision, and that is set to 65, of course. They do tend to set up a high line or even a mid-block in certain moments, and more so, this does help with the possession-based style of football. As for the build-up play, I've set it to a slow build-up, of course, looking to have your centre-back showing for the ball, get on the ball a bit more. The likes of Busquets, you want him in and around the defensive third with the build-up play, of course. Building it up nice and slowly, allowing for those diamonds and those triangle formations to essentially form, creating those nice passing angles and passages of play that you tend to see with a Barcelona type system, as well as a potential Inter Miami system. So for the chance creation, I've set it to a balanced approach. Now this will maintain the structural integrity of the formation at hand, of course the 4-3-3, but at the same time the players will still look to try and support the offensive outlet with potentially making runs in behind. Of course, you've got the likes of Taylor, Suarez and Messi in your front line. You sometimes do want them to break in behind and trying to exploit and penetrate the opposition's backline, so they can still look to try and do that every now and then. As for the width, I've set it to 20. Now this is more or less to try and help the fullbacks in those wide areas have a bit more space in and around them by the likes of Messi and Taylor tucking in a bit more or less playing as inside forward. So the 20 width will more or less try and narrow them into those positions. So moving on to the players in the box, I've set it to 9. Of course, this is a lot. So this is a hell of a lot of players, more or less 4 to 5 players every time in and around the attacking third. Of course, this will be one of your fullbacks, your front 3 in certain moments, and maybe even a midfielder. As for the corners and the free kicks, as always, I've set it to 4. So, taking a look at the instructions, starting off at the back with the goalkeeper, Drake Callender. He's set to a cautious approach for saving on crosses. Now, I've done this because more times than not, he tries to stay on his line and allows for the centre-back to take command of the situation, trying to win those aerial balls. As for saving outside of the box, he's set to be a sweeper keeper. Of course, you are playing a high mid-block at times, so there will be space in behind the backline. Of course, you do have some good recovery pace in your backline. I do think that for an MLS goalkeeper, he is quite decent in terms of playing under pressure, being able to play those 5-yard passes under pressure into his backline. Speaking of which, the backline, they've got their base set of instructions. No real changes required for them. So taking a look at your 2 fullbacks, of course, you've got the likes of Elba as well as Yedlin. They're going to be the outlet balls down either flank, of course, the left or the right. providing a lot of width in this side. Of course, the likes of Messi and Taylor will be looking to tuck inside and invert a bit more, and that is so that they can create space for the bombing on fullbacks, which will be told to join the attack. Of course, you want them very much involved in the attacking outlet. Normal interceptions will be set to be on for them, as well as the run type being set to overlap, constantly bombing down the flanks, making sure that they are providing as much width to the attacking side as they possibly can. And then finally, as for the defensive position, I've set it to stick to position. As you'll see here for the likes of Alba, he is set to join attack, overlap, and of course stick to position as well. So moving on to the base of your midfield now, of course the likes of Sergio Busquets. For the defensive behavior, I've set him to a balanced approach. Now, more so Sergio Busquets, he's got a massive 1000% footballing IQ. Therefore, you will require him to maintain the shape and the structure of the side going forward and backwards, and making sure that he is positioning himself in the correct areas to try and break up the opposition's build-up play. As for the attacking support, it's not really known for his attacking outlet, so therefore you want him to stay back while attacking. You don't really need him getting forward. More so, you want him to be able to rotate possession when obviously the likes of Inter Miami have progressed higher up the field. As for the interceptions, he's set to conservative. You don't really need him chasing the ball too much. More so, the IQ effect will come into play where he's positioned himself in the correct area to try and break up the play as best as he possibly can. As for the positioning freedom, I've set him to the deep lying playmaker. This will allow him to have a slightly freer role, showing for the ball when building out from the back, at the same time looking to try and get on the ball as much as possible and look to try and rotate it into the correct areas. And then finally, for the defensive positioning, I've set him to cover the center. Again, you don't need him drifting too far wide. It's never been his game to drift into the fullback roles and cover those areas for his teammates. More so, he's covering the center, looking to try and shield the back line as best as he possibly can. As for your other midfielders, of course, Jean Mota, he is said to be a bit more of a box-to-box type player, allowing him to get forward and yes, be a supportive player in the attacking outlets, but at the same time, allowing him to also drop a bit deeper and help support the likes of Busquets when building out from the back. As for the support on crosses, of course, he is set to having a stay on the edge of the box approach, not looking to break into the box nearly as much, but because you have set the players in the box to be set to 9, every now and then you will find the likes of this man breaking into that attacking third. As for the interceptions, you want him to have a bit more of an energy bounce to him, so therefore I've set him to aggressive as well as cover the wing. So the two number 8s will essentially look to try and cover the fullbacks if they are out of position. As for the positioning freedom on the offensive side of things now, I've told him to stick to position, not really requiring him to have a free roam approach or potentially drift wide and try and support the likes of Taylor and Alba in those wider areas. You need him to more or less make sure that centrally he is in position and looking to try and get on the ball in those central areas. So taking a look at the right central midfield, of course, Kramaski, I think that's how you pronounce his name. I could be butchering it, but I don't know. I know he is quite good though. 65 overall, does have a lot of potential to potentially get a lot better, but nonetheless, he is set to get forward. Now, this is also factoring in the likes of what Messi can do. You want Messi to sometimes drop into the central midfield area, and therefore, you need this kid to more or less vacate that spot. So therefore, you would expect him to get forward, of course, be a very good attacking outlet. The support on crosses is set to balance, sometimes breaking into the box, other times hanging on the edge of the area, looking to try and help support the build-up play. The interceptions is set to aggressive, also looking to try and more or less allow Messi to not have an aggressive work rate to him on the defensive side of things, and therefore you're compensating for that with the likes of this kid right here having that aggressive mentality. As for the defensive positioning, I've told him to cover the wing, and then finally for the positioning freedom on the offensive side of things, you want him to drift wide, allowing for him to more or less take up that right wing situation spot where the likes of Messi does drop a bit deeper. So moving on into your forward line, we'll start off with the likes of Taylor. He has a very different role to what Messi has, of course. So he is set to come back on defense, cut inside, and then of course if the support runs is set to a balanced approach, so therefore you can allow him to sometimes be able to break in behind, or maybe even come short and link up with the midfield, or maybe be a bit more of a target man. But more so, I think a balanced approach does allow him to get the best out of what Martino as well as Inter Miami are trying to replicate. As for the interceptions, I've set it to aggressive, creating that nice work rate on the left-hand side, as well as the support on crosses. You want him getting into the box more times than not. So moving on to the likes of Suarez, he is set to stay central. You don't really need him drifting too far wide, especially if your other forwards do tend to tuck inside. You need them staying nice and close to the striker and allowing for the likes of your wing-backs / full-backs to be able to bomb forward. As for the attacking runs with Suarez, you can obviously have him on target man, But I don't think that does him justice. I think you sometimes see him dropping off the backline, playing as a false nine, or potentially making those runs in behind. So I think a mixed approach does allow him to do this. As for the interceptions, I've set it to conservative. You want him to more or less save himself for when in possession of the ball, and therefore allow him to slightly hang further up the field and be a bit more of an outlet ball for a potential counter-attack. As for the likes of Messi, the man you've all been waiting for, he is set to come back on defense. Now, this is not to try and show defensive support or anything of that ilk. It's more so to have him start a little bit deeper when building out from the back, therefore allowing him to get on the ball a bit more and allowing for you to try and use him to the best of his capabilities. As for the transgression, obviously I've set him to free roam, and because your right central midfielder is set to drift wide, more times than not you do see Messi tucking in a bit more, being a bit more central with the build-up play. And then obviously to try and allow him to force him to be a bit more central, I've also said come short. Now this will allow him to link up a bit more with the central midfielders. As for the interceptions, I've set it to conservative, and then finally for the support on crosses, I've set it to a balanced approach, allowing him to drift in and out of the box when required. So there you have it, guys. That is how I would set out Inter Miami's 4-3-3. If you have enjoyed this video, as per always, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. That'd be fantastic. I would absolutely appreciate that. But out of 10, I would give this a solid 8.5. I think it's very effective, and I can't really tell if that's because of the likes of Busquets, Alba, and Messi, and of course Suarez up front. I can't really tell if the good players really influence my liking of systems. But in terms of how they've tactically set out and how they are looking to play, that is how I try and play in FC24. Therefore, I like it quite a lot. So an 8.5 is a very solid overall. If you can, let me know down below what you would give the system out of 10. That'd be great. And yeah, we'll move on to the next video later.